Hello, welcome or welcome back to the Yarn and Yarns YouTube channel. My name is Angela and all the places you can find me should be linked in the description box below this video. Here on the channel you'll find me chatting about my adventures in knitting, spinning, crochet and weaving, all of the fibre related things. Today's video is the next round of my These Yarns Will Self-Destruct in 12 Months experiment, game, project, however you like to refer to it. If you're new to the channel and you might be wondering what on earth I'm talking about, I do have a couple of videos related to last year's self-destructing yarns, and it's basically a way for me to try and encourage myself to use some of the skeins of yarn that have been sat in my stash for a little while, things that I don't necessarily have projects in mind for, and are in danger of just kind of languishing in my stash, not being used and not being loved. And I'm trying to reclaim some of my space. I've got quite a lot of yarn that I've collected over the last sort of decade or more of knitting, and some things that I have in my stash don't really reflect the types of yarn that I use more regularly now, or more likely at this point they're just things that I don't have a clear project idea in mind for, and I'm trying to let some of those things go just to reclaim my space, to organise my stash, and so that I feel a little bit happier that the things that I have do have some kind of plan attached to them, will be used at some point in the future, even if it's not at this moment. I kind of have a project in mind for all of the things that I've got. If not a specific project, then at least kind of a idea that this might go into a top, this might go into a shawl, and this might be a hat. You know, those sorts of loose plans are absolutely fine, even if I don't have a specific pattern picked out. Got some skeins in my stash that I really don't know what to do with, and so last year I started the self-destructing yarns so that I would give myself a little bit of a deadline, and so I picked out some yarns and I set myself a constraint around those yarns that if I hadn't used them within a 12-month period, I was going to let them go, I was going to destash, and that actually worked really well for me. And I used about half of the skeins that I put into my basket last year, and have recently let go of the things that didn't get used. And although some of them were hard to let go of, I'm at peace with that. I've still got plenty of yarn in my stash. I'm not going to run out anytime soon. I've got lots of project ideas for new cast-ons when I have the moment. But yeah, it's time for some of the things that I have to be used and loved by someone else that is not me. Today's video is this year's round of the self-destructing yarn basket. So these are the yarns that are going into the basket, and I'm giving myself 12 months from when this video is published to either use them or they will be let out into the world for someone else to use and love. Yeah, this video is going to be a little tour of the yarns that I've picked out. As I continue to do this project year after year, it's getting harder to pick things out of my stash because I've already let go of the things that were the easier things to let go of. I did that last year. The self-destructing yarn basket is kind of the next phase of that, where I really love the yarns that I put into the basket. I just didn't really have projects in mind for them. And each year that we go through this experiment, the yarns that I put into the basket are going to be just harder and harder to let go of. At the moment, I have mostly got yarns left in my stash that either have projects assigned to them, so I kind of know what I'm going to do with them. They are yarns that were gifted to me, so they are super precious in that way, or they are yarns that I've picked up as souvenirs from particular trips or yarn festivals, and so again they have a sentimental attachment to me in that way. But I still want to go through this process because, yeah, I've got a stack of about 9 skeins of yarn here that I'm just not sure what to do with, and I'm in danger of just hanging on to them for the sake of hanging on to them, if that makes sense. Whereas the space could be used for things in my stash that I'm more committed to. Does that make any sense whatsoever? Hopefully. So yes, I'm going to give you a tour of the skeins that I've picked out, but before I do that I will just mention what I'm wearing today, because I've got some knitwear on and I do get questions about what I'm wearing. So I am wearing the Rift Tee, which is a pattern by Jacqueline Cieslak, and it's a sort of cropped short sleeve top. There is a sort of detail down the side. Not going to be able to really show it to you, but there'll be a link to the project page below. And I knit mine from a couple of skeins of yarn that were gifted to me by the lovely Zoe of Pins and Needles UK. This gorgeous orange colourway. I'm kind of blending into my background a little bit. I believe this was some yarn from Knit Crate, and I think it was one of their own brand yarns. I can't remember which one it was, so yeah, apologies. only half giving you the details, but I guess the main thing that you might be interested is the pattern, which, as I say, is the Rift by Jacqueline Z Slack. Time to have a little tour of the yarns that are going into the Self-Destructing yarn basket this year. So the first skein, I'm fairly sure, actually I'm 100% positive that this yarn is going to get knit up into a pair of socks. I just need the push to actually get round and do this. It's one of the yarns that's been hanging out in my stash for the longest. This was a lovely gift to me from my friend Lisa, who lives over in the US. And we bonded over our mutual love of the television series Doctor Who. And Laser Sheep Yarn, who this yarn is from, I'm not sure if they're still dying, but at one point they had a set of yarns inspired by the different Doctors. And this, I believe, is the 11th sheep. And Lisa kindly gifted me this skein of yarn. It is a 75 merino, 25 nylon blend. I think this would make a pair of fabulous shorty socks for the summer. I just love these colours. It kind of reminds me a little bit of kind of beach with this sort of peachy, sandy, tan colour, and the blue for the sea. It's just really nice. This pop of red is just, could be my bucket and spade when I'm making my sandcastles on the beach. And yeah, I just haven't got round to using it. It's one of those skeins that in my head has almost become too precious to use. And yeah, it's such a shame. I should be using this, wearing something made in this precious yarn and enjoying it. So this is the first yarn that's going to go into my basket. I just need an incentive to cast it on, and I think popping it in my Self-Destructing yarn basket will just give me that incentive. So Laser Sheep yarns, the 11th Doctor colourway, first yarn in the basket this year. There is an actual basket. Oh no, I've got two more skeins that were gifted to me. So like the Laser Sheep yarns, these yarns were a kind gift, and I just haven't got round to finding the right project and using them. So yeah, I'm hoping by putting them in here it will give me an incentive to use them. The first one is a skein or a ball of Wool is the Answer yarn, and the lighting is pretty harsh today, so it's probably not going to do me any favours showing this off. Let me try and... There we go. The close-up sort of shows off the colours in this. So it's a really pretty, almost cream background with pops of pastel-y, sort of coral, green and yellow. And I really think this is such a beautiful yarn. It's called Lazy Dandelion, and again it's a blend of 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon, and this was a lovely gift from a friend of mine a couple of years ago. And I think because it's more on the pastel-y side, I just haven't come up with a perfect project for this. I am a bit reticent to use this in socks because it's so light. And I know that I'm pretty harsh on my socks. You know, I wear my socks all year round. They go in my boots. I wander around the house in bare feet. Sometimes I wander out into the garden with just my sort of socks on. So my socks that I've knit in the past that are from lighter colours, they just get really grubby really quickly. So lighter coloured socks just don't really suit my lifestyle, shall we say. I haven't cast these on for socks, and because it is a slightly more pastel-y range of colours and I tend to gravitate towards more jewel tones and things like that, I just haven't come up with a perfect project for this. So if you have any ideas of what I could use this for, maybe it could be a good one just for me to knit up and gift, either some socks or a cowl or a shawl or something. Yeah, that could be a lovely way for me to use this and then pay it forward, pass on the joy of this gift by gifting the finished object to someone else. Let me know. Do you have any thoughts and ideas what I could do with this, the Lazy Dandelion colourway from Wool is the Answer? For now, that one is going into the Self-Destructing yarn basket. The third skein of yarn is actually a bit of a beast. So this one was also gifted to me, and I think it was gifted to me by a lovely friend of mine, Courtney. I've got a few skeins of yarn that I've had in my stash for, at this point, probably 5 or 6 years, and I've got a couple that I know I won through some podcast giveaways, and I've got a couple of skeins that I know were gifted to me, and the sort of details of which were gifted and which were won, I mean, they're all gifted in some way, but the actual specifics are becoming a little bit hazy in my old lady brain, so forgive me if I'm not remembering all of the details for this, but I think it was a gift from Courtney. And I've kept on to the hold of this for ages because, again, it's become one of those almost too precious to use kind of yarns. But I really love the colours in this. It's red predominantly with some purple and some yellow. It really reminds me of beautiful sort of sunset kind of colours. And this is a skein of yarn that's actually 150 grams of sock weight yarn, and it's Blue Face Leicester, which is actually one of my sort of favourite fibres. So I've got no excuses for why I haven't knit with this, other than I haven't come up with a pattern for it yet. And again, as I say, I was kind of been holding on to it at this point as something that's too precious to use. I think the reason it comes in 150 grams, or at least I think the idea behind it, was that this would be a nice amount of yarn for a decent sized shawl. And the dyer is Marigold Jen. Again, I'm not sure if they're still going. A US dyer, so something that's a little bit more precious in my stash in terms of me being able to replace it. I don't order very much from the US because postage costs and customs and things like that behind it was so you could make a reasonable size shawl. But I'm completely open to ideas for this. Maybe it would make a nice sort of colour work contrast in a sweater or something like that. I really have no idea, which is why I'm asking for you for help. And I'm also popping these into my basket in the hopes that I will actually spend a bit more time thinking about these yarns and keeping them in mind for projects as I'm browsing through my pattern books or Ravelry. I don't think I told you the colourway for this. It's called Red Sky at Night. Isn't that beautiful? These are going to be so hard to let go if I don't cast on with them, which is why I'm hoping this will encourage me over the next year or so to get them on the needles. So into the basket that goes. And then I've got 3 more quantities of yarn left, 5 skeins in total, that are things that I've bought. Let's crack on with those. The first is a super precious skein of Undercover Otter, my one and only. I think I've had some scraps or some leftovers of Undercover Otter in swaps, particularly for my lovely friend Caroline of Colourful Creativity. I know I've had some mini skeins and I think they've included some Undercover Otter, if I'm remembering correctly. I picked my skein up. There is a bit more expensive to get over here in the UK. I went for a day out in London. This was before the pandemic times. So it's probably, we're talking 2018, maybe even earlier than that. I went for a day trip to London and I went to Loop in London, and I also took the journey out to Tribe yarns, and I found this skein in Tribe. So this was kind of one of the souvenirs that I picked up from my visit to Tribe. It's called If It Bleeds. That is the colourway, which is so much fun. Makes my dark heart happy. It's 80% merino, 20% nylon, and it's these beautiful autumnal colours with some speckle in. And again, I'm not sure what to do with it. Maybe socks would be the way to go for this. I don't tend to knit as many pairs of socks with indie dyed yarns now as I used to, because again, I tend to find that I prefer the commercial yarns like Opal and West Yorkshire Spinners. I find they're a little bit more hard wearing than a merino based yarn for the way that I wear my socks. But I could be persuaded, I think, to maybe just pop this up into a pair of socks if I can't find any other use for it. Again, maybe a hat, I don't know. What do you think? These colours just really sing and they really speak to me, which is of course why I picked up this particular colourway. Again, this was not a cheap skein of yarn over here in the UK, so I would really love to find an excuse to work with it. Perhaps a Musselburgh hat, maybe. I feel like I'm the only one in the whole universe who hasn't knit a Musselburgh. I don't know, let me know. What do you think I should use this yarn for? Undercover Otter, If It Bleeds. It's going into the basket. God, these are going to be so hard to say goodbye to if I don't use them. I'm hoping that this round of self-destructing yarns will really spur me on to get these ones on the needles. The next 2 yarns were also souvenirs, but they were souvenirs from a trip that I took to New Zealand, so they've come with me from the other side of the world. And these are the yarns in question. So James and I took a trip to New Zealand 5 years ago. James's sister has emigrated out there and she got married, so we went over to her wedding. We did a little bit of travelling round, and of course I visited a few yarn shops while I was there, and I picked these 2 up. And where did I get these 2 from? I think they came from the shop in Auckland that I visited. can't remember the name of the shop now. And I picked these two up, and I was going to knit a shawl with these. I picked up a pattern for the shawl and everything, but again, it's a case of, one, I don't knit and wear shawls as much anymore. Two, the pattern that I originally picked out is from a designer that I now have a few issues with supporting. These colours just aren't my usual. They're not as autumnal as I usually like to work with. So yeah, a combination of all of those factors means that this is still languishing in my stash. Precious souvenir yarn from New Zealand. It is a 80% 20% nylon superwash merino blend again. And this colour is Viola, this colour is Gull, G-U-L-L. Let me know. Should I just go for it? Should I just make myself a shawl? See how much use I get from that? Or should I go off, separate these, make two distinct projects? I could potentially knit a couple of pattern socks in these. These are both semi-solid, so they would show up some nice sort of cabled or lace socks. Those could be an option if I split them two. I think in my head I've always seen me using these two together because that's how I bought them, but there's no reason that I can't separate them. They're from Do Spins, by the way. I should have said that. So, or Doe Spins, D-O-E-S-P-I-N-S. New Zealand merino, limited edition as well. I guess that's the colourways are limited. So yeah, let me know, what shall I knit with these? Help! In the meantime, they're going into the basket. The basket is looking pretty full now. I've got 2 more skeins to try and squeeze in here. Might need to do some rearranging. Final quantity of yarn that I've got to go in the basket are 2 skeins by the lovely Caroline of Colourful Creativity. Look at these beauties. And they're not sort of souvenirs, they're not attached to anything sort of specific in my mind. I bought these from Caroline, and originally I had bought these with a contrast yarn to knit into a striped cardigan. But for various reasons, that cardigan is not something that I'm interested in making anymore. Actually, the colour that I bought as a contrast, when the skeins arrived to me, it wasn't quite contrasty enough, if that makes sense. So I've already destashed the grey that I bought to go with these. But I kept hold of these two. These are the Coral Reef colourway. And I think I've got a pair of socks knit in this Coral Reef colourway. But they're absolutely glorious with these oranges and pinks and purple speckles. And there's some yellow in here too. Yeah, it's just beautiful colourway. I just couldn't let it go in my first round of destashing. But I'm not sure what to do with them. So, help! Part of me is thinking maybe I might be able to get away with finding a sort of more summery t-shirts, like short sleeve affair. Something similar to the Love Note. I wouldn't want to knit a Love Note with these because I don't think I want a speckly sort of multicoloured Love Note. But maybe just some sort of plain short sleeve top. One of those sort of knit at a looser gauge. Maybe I could look at something like the Lento. Would I need more than 2 for a Lento in my size? I don't know. I'm kind of thinking out loud at the moment. Let me know what you think. Do you have any pattern ideas for me for this? Like I say, I'm open to any suggestion. Don't be swayed by the sort of projects that I've been saying I had in mind. If these skeins are screaming a particular pattern to you, then please do let me know, because yeah, I just need all of the ideas possible and all of the inspiration to try and use these skeins rather than to have them languishing in my stash. So I'm going to squeeze those also into this basket. It doesn't really fit. Let's take out that cake of yarn. It's the cake of yarn that's causing the issues because it's taking up quite a lot of space. Let's do it that way. Yay! Look at all those glorious, glorious yarns. Please help me. I don't want any of them to self-destruct. I want to use them and enjoy them. But at the moment I'm a bit clueless. I guess other than the laser sheep yarn, that 50 gram skein, I'm a little bit clueless as to what to do with the rest. So please help me. Give me all of your lovely ideas. Yeah, we'll see what happens in the next 12 months. So that is everything I have for this video. We have had a rummage in the stash. We've pulled out some yarns. They will self-destruct in 12 months if I don't use them. I hope you have enjoyed this little video. It's just a bit of frivolous fun. setting myself some goals and some challenges around the stash that I have, trying to help and encourage me to use the things that I have rather than get distracted by all of the shiny new things that I think I need. Do let me know in the comments below any thoughts that you have on stashing, how you go about assigning projects to the yarns that you have. Do you only buy yarns if you've got a definite project in mind for them? And do you have, most importantly from my perspective, do you have any pattern suggestions for the lovely yarns that I've been waving at you? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. I will be back again soon here with some more making content, so I hope you will join me for the next video. But until we do get to spend time together again, I hope you get to do some other things that you enjoy. Great big woolly hugs to you all. Bye for now. Bye.